First off, sorry about 9:06. I was loading things and staring at the clock, and I'm going, okay, we're going to make it. We're going to make it. We're going to make it. I was close. Morning to all of you guys. Morning to Soccer Down here. It's Soccer's morning show. John here, you there. And this morning we got stuff to talk about. More shenanigans yesterday in the Premier League, and we'll walk through that and discuss it. We are giving Bart Keeler so much stuff to talk about tomorrow. I mean, it is out of control. And so we'll go into the incidents from yesterday and focusing on the last incident. We'll go through what happened with Fulham getting full points against Wolves and our friendly neighborhood VAR coming through once again. So we'll get into that. And obviously, we've got Champions League today. We'll go through all of the meals on the Christmas table, give you the numbers there that are attached, all of the scenarios and standings and such. We'll go through that with Champions League and roll through all the rest of the news of the day. Very, very cool. One of the busiest men in show business. And he's showing up at 10 o'clock Eastern time. It's Glenn Davis, friend of the network and golden ticket status holder. And so Glenn's been kind of busy because Houston keeps winning. And so we'll talk to Glenn about Houston. We'll talk about Ben Olsen, talk about the players, talk about MLS Cup playoffs, anything and everything on Glenn's mind. If Glenn wants to vent his spleen about anything in particular, that's what he's here for. So Glenn's going to join us at 10 o'clock, and we get the chance to play. We get the chance to play a promo that I found the other day.
Hey, Glenn Davis here in Houston, Texas. A big fan of Soccer Down here, and remember, soccer matters.
Thank you. Yes. So we get to surprise him with that. I found that the other day. For the longest time, I was trying to find that promo, and I couldn't find it. And so I finally went diving back into the stacks, and I found it. So Glenn will join us at 10 o'clock, and then obviously we'll carry through the rest of the news of the day and go through everything. There's been some movement in Major League Soccer from New York to Chicago, from Red Bulls to Chicago. We'll kind of get into that interesting move. And it's a great move for Red Bulls. And I don't know what to phrase it for Chicago unless they just want to maybe set money on fire. I don't know. But we'll get into that and get into all of the other news of the day and everything else that is coming across our path this morning. But for opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and at kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's your QR code for those of you watching on Twitch. And don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off of your purchase. And thanks to everybody who has been purchasing Kickoff Coffee and kicking off their day with Kickoff Coffee. So SoccerDownHere15 gets you 15% off. They in turn take 10% and reinvest it in youth games, youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. And I admit, I was kind of torn about what to discuss this morning when it came to opening kickoff. But as someone who is, who likes to pride himself on journalism, might help if I remove the QR code so you can actually see me talking. There was something that came across my bow yesterday, came across all of our bows yesterday. And it drove me nuts when I saw it. And it's we're going to be going back and forth from our friends at Awful Announcing and our friends at Futurism. So our friends at Futurism, what they found out in an investigation of Sports Illustrated is that apparently Futurism, they did a dig on Sports Illustrated. And, it starts out, just simple enough. And Michael Valverde, we will add this to what's going on today. Michael Valverde's got the QOD. Quod erat demonstrandum. Futurism saw a Sports Illustrated author by the name of Drew Ortiz. Read the bio, fairly innocuous. Likes camping, hiking, hanging out on his parents' farm. Apparently, Drew Ortiz does not exist. No social media presence, no publishing history. Profile photo is for sale on a website that sells AI-generated headshots where he's described as a neutral white young adult male with short brown hair and blue eyes. Ortiz is not apparently the only AI-generated author published by Sports Illustrated, according to a person involved with the creation of the content who asked to be kept anonymous to protect them from professional repercussions. I don't know. This might be one of those cases where if you came out and said, yeah, they're doing what we're going to be talking about here, you might actually be employed. You might get a job. You might keep a job. You might be seen as someone who respects journalism. So, but we'll see. Quote, there's a lot. They told us of the fake authors. I was like, what are they? This is ridiculous. This person doesn't exist. At the bottom of the page, there'd be a photo of a person and some fake description of them like, oh, John lives in Houston, Texas. He loves yard games and hanging out with his dog, Sam. Stuff like that. It's just crazy. The AI author's writing often sounds like it was written by an alien. One Ortiz article, for instance, warns that volleyball can be a little tricky to get into, especially without an actual ball to practice with. According to a second person involved in the creation of the SI content who wanted to be kept anonymous. That's because it's not just the author's headshots that are AI generated. Some of the articles themselves, they said, were churned out using AI as well. Second source. The content is absolutely AI generated, no matter how much they say that it's not. After we reached out with questions, meaning futurism, Arena Group, all the AI generated authors disappeared from the SI site without explanation. Initially, the questions from Futurism received no response, but after they published the story, an Arena Group spokesperson provided the following statement, then blamed a contractor for the content. And it's long. It's a long word salad. According to our initial investigation, this is not accurate. Today, an article was published alleging SI published AI-generated articles. According to our initial investigation, this is not accurate. The articles in question were product reviews. Oh, okay. And were licensed content from an external third-party company. And then they named the company. A number of the e-commerce articles ran on certain Arena websites. Arena Group, meaning the Arena Group is the group that owns SI. We continually monitor our partners and we're in the midst of a review when these allegations were raised. Advon has assured us that all of the articles in question were written and edited by humans. According to Advon, their writers, editors, and researchers create and curate content, follow a policy that involves using both counter-plagiarism and counter-AI software on all content. However, we have learned that Advon had writers use a pen or a pseudonym in certain articles to protect author privacy, actions we don't condone, and we're removing the content while our internal investigation continues and have since ended the partnership. Futurism. Sounds like the Arena Group's investigation pretty much just involved asking Advon whether the content was AI generated and taking them at their word when they said it wasn't. Our sources familiar with the creation of the content disagree. Statement also never addresses the core allegation of the story that SI published content from non-existent writers with AI-generated headshots. The implication seems to be that Advon invented fake writers, assigned them fake bios, AI-generated headshots, and then stopped right there, only publishing content written by old-fashioned humans. Futurism says maybe that's true, but we doubt it. Now that it's under the management of the Arena Group, parts of the magazine seem to have devolved into a Potemkin village in which phony writers are cooked up out of thin air, outfitted with equally bogus bios and expertise to win readers' trust, and used to pump out AI-generated buying guides that are monetized by affiliate links to products that provide a financial kickback when readers click on them. Sometime this summer, for example, Ortiz disappeared from SI's site entirely, his profile page instead redirecting to that of a Sora Tanaka. Again, no online record of a writer by that name, but Tanaka's profile picture is for sale on the same AI headshot marketplace as Ortiz, where she's listed as joyful Asian young adult female with long brown hair and brown eyes. End quote. Sora has always been a fitness guru, and so they keep going. So Tanaka didn't last either. Eventually, she also disappeared, replaced by yet another profile that carried no headshot at all, which Sports Illustrated deleted along with other AI-generated content after we reached out. Wasn't just author profiles. Each time an author was switched out, the post they supposedly penned would be reattributed to the new persona with no endnote explaining the change in byline. None of the articles credited to Ortiz or other names contained any disclosure about the use of AI, that the writer wasn't real, though they did eventually gain a disclaimer explaining the content was created by a third party and that the SI editorial staff are not involved in the creation of the content. Similar operations appear to be alive and well elsewhere in the Arena Group's portfolio. The Street, which was bought by the Arena Group back in 2019, apparently does it as well. Sometimes the Street's efforts to remove the fake writers can be sloppy. So that was Futurism's dive. And then our friends at Awful Announcing chased after the story. Morning, Twitch Pitch Peeps. Morning, Abby. And so you had our friends at Awful Announcing pursue. According to Awful Announcing, SI's apparent use of AI is very similar to the kind of AI-generated content that members of the News Guild of New York accused the USA Today-owned website Reviewer of publishing last month. Earlier this year, Gannett paused its AI sports writing program following an embarrassing launch. You remember that? While Geo Media moved forward with publishing AI-generated content. And so they went through, Awful Announcing went through and got reactions and things like that. And there were, suffice to say, the union wasn't happy about it. If true, these practices violate everything we believe in about journalism, the SI union wrote in a statement signed the Humans of Sports Illustrated. We deplore being associated with something so disrespectful to our readers. So SI Union came out. They were mad. A lot of the writers came out. Copy chiefs came out. Suffice to say, they were pretty hot about it. College football reporter Richard Johnson called the fiasco antithetical to everything SI should stand for. Future reporter Michael Rosenberg called out management in his 280-character on his 280-character app. Albert Breer said it was a blemish on SI's legacy. And so I'm to the point now where I don't know if I should continue my Sports Illustrated subscription. This was one of the things that popped into my head this morning. Do I continue my Sports Illustrated subscription because of something like this? The fact that it comes once a month is bad enough. But do I continue my subscription? Tom Russo, shouldn't be any surprise. It's the challenge of all of society in coming decades, determining what's real and what isn't. Abby dropped hers a long time ago. It's disappointing to only get one of these a month. It's disappointing to see what the Arena Group has decided that Sports Illustrated should be. And it's stuff like this, one, that is a threat to journalism. Because then, the launch that was had, it was awful. The launch that was had a couple of months ago in other places using AI. So, like I said, I didn't know if you saw that yesterday. I didn't know if you saw how many different directions it went yesterday, but it was disappointing to see, not surprising at all. Michael Head, cancel. Like I said, man, it's something I'm seriously going to have to think about. While I respect the journalists and the writers that are there, I don't know if, giving the current owners of Sports Illustrated the Office HD's money is worth it if you're going to do stuff like this. Because what's the point? You did fantastic stuff with the NIL issue and, Juju Lewis on the cover and all that stuff. But then you could do stuff like this with made-up author bios, made-up author headshots, and reattributing articles when you swap out writers. Sometimes, apparently, allegedly, possibly, probably. Michael used to love SI, and they lost him years ago. So, I mean, it was, to see it, like I said, sadly, it wasn't a surprise. But when you see stuff like that, then you're sitting there going, why should I give you the time of day? I mean, I'll look at stuff online and on their websites, and I'll get more in stuff that I have interest and know stuff about, where I know that it could be disseminated if it's real or artificial. That was my disclaimer. So I can go to the SI website and I can sit there and go, yeah, I know that this is an actual person. I know this is an actual story. I know this is actual stuff. So, but yeah, saw that yesterday and just got me thinking a little bit. So I guess the question here in the house is it going to be continuing the subscription with the Arena Group or not? But yeah, that was what happened yesterday. And fantastic work by our friends in the journalism craft that are not AI generated. So that's your opening kickoff. Brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's your QR code for those of you watching on Twitch and on the 280 character app and on our YouTube channel. So right there, in and of itself, great friends that are great friends at Kickoff Coffee. Don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. They get 15% off. You get 15% off your purchase if you use the code SoccerDownHere15. They in turn take 10%, reinvested into youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Now, Michael's in this morning, and he says, AI-generated content is rampant but very difficult to spot, like Charlie Brown's parents. Did we ever see Charlie Brown's parents? AI-generated content, kind of like Wile E. Coyote chasing the Roadrunner. It's always out there, but you never get to the conclusion of it. But yeah, like Charlie Brown's parents. We never did see Charlie Brown's parents, did we? Never have. Okay. QOD from Michael this morning. He's in. How can fans encourage bad ownership? And actually, I'll bring this up to Glenn Davis, too, so you might have to remind me at 10 o'clock. How can fans encourage bad ownership who clearly have no interest in improving the respective communities the teams own are seated in? We want more Uncle Arthurs and less Teppers. How can we impact this to help ensure the sport's long-term future? Full disclosure, if memory serves, Michael is hanging out with us from Charlotte these days. And this goes back to the idea yesterday while we were on the air in doing football down here that David Tepper fires 3 coaches, one of them being Frank Reich. It's Frank Reich, Deuce Staley, and a third offensive coach that I can't remember off the top of my head. And it goes to the idea that Tepper, and this is, once again, it's my sandbox, so I can do with it whatever I want, is Tepper wanted Bryce Young at quarterback. And so Frank Reich did not. He wanted C.J. Stroud. Guess who won the argument? The owner. So then Bryce Young comes in. They're 1-10. They've been anemic offensively. I should know I have Bryce Young on my fantasy team instead of C.J. Stroud. And you're getting what you're getting right now in Carolina. So David Tepper, who is mad that his team is 1-10 because he saddled his former head coach, with a quarterback that he didn't want, is having this kind of effect on what's going on with his franchise. Apparently, after the loss on Sunday, Tepper was in the locker room, stormed out into the hallway, and yelled an expletive. And he dropped an F-bomb, and everybody saw it. But it's obviously Frank Reich's fault for doing all of this and not taking the guy that he didn't want and turning him into a world beater. So you fire 3 offensive coaches, including the head coach. Second season in a row, Frank Reich has not made it to the end of the year. But once again, remember David Tepper is in charge of the Crown as well up in Charlotte. And so Michael wants to know, how can fans encourage bad ownership who have no interest in improving the respective communities the teams they own are seated in? How can you encourage bad ownership? Not to be bad, I guess, and invest in the right ways. wanting more Uncle Arthur's, less Teppers. How can you impact this to help ensure the sport's long-term future? And I think that sometimes that's the Mega Millions question, which I think right now is at $350 million. Because in a market where something is new, like Charlotte, you wonder how much, fallout there would be if folks were mad and didn't start showing up at games at Bank of America Stadium. And we probably should ask Jessica Charman this, but Jess is over in England right now, and it is 2:30 in the afternoon. So what I'll do is I'll forward this question to Jess. Now, I'm considering she's over there for a while, and we'll see what her answer would be, and I will bring it over. But that's a good question. How do you sit there and encourage an owner who is clearly wanting to be the focus of attention and doing things my way? It's almost like he's Major League Soccer's version of Jerry Jones, and he wants to do things in that manner. It's like mine. You'll do things this way. And then you remember all the upheaval in the front office that Charlotte had before they even got off the ground. Folks are leaving, reassigned, going here, going there, leaving, that kind of a thing. And it's been fairly chaotic. And when you have, folks bringing in talent that doesn't work out, then you're kind of stuck. And while you did make the playoffs, I know that a lot of folks make the playoffs these years. So, that's an interesting question. So we'll play this one forward. Michael, don't lose this question as we continue to talk about stuff. Tom Russo, Frank Reich just seems one of those guys better suited as a coordinator. Will never be mad at him. Dude want us a Super Bowl. So yeah, and that goes to the whole thing. Some folks are just good as number twos. They just are. Some folks are good number twos. They never end up being good. They never end up being good number ones. If that makes any sense. So that's what you're staring at with Charlotte, and it's going to be a continuing question until things calm down. And you bring in folks, and you don't have the upheaval like you've had with coaches and folks that want to go back overseas and tell you that before the season's over when you're in a playoff chase, all these kinds of things. Michael Head, owners can and should do as they please and deal with the ramifications. They own the team. If the fans don't like it, they don't have to support it. No one forces me to buy season tickets. True. And the thought for me is, if the fans are mad enough and they don't renew their season tickets, in Charlotte, are there enough folks to sit there and fill those gaps of folks that are mad and don't want to go back? That would be my first thought. How empty is Bank of America Stadium? How mad are fans if it continues to go this route and they don't show up? Do season ticket holder, abandonments go unclaimed? Does no one go and fill those gaps? I guess is my first question. So that would be my first indicator. If fans continue to get frustrated, then what happens in the interim as you go from season to season ticket holder number to season ticket holder, and does your number of season tickets decrease? So I guess that's the question in Charlotte where David Tepper is concerned. We'll keep an eye on this, but no, hang on to this question, Michael. We'll keep cycling it through as we work through the off season and changes and all that kind of stuff. So we'll hang on to this and kind of apply this question going forward. So write it down. Don't lose it. Yesterday in the Premier League, we had a lot of fun. Unless, of course, you were a Fulham or a Wolves fan, because it was nuts. Michael supposes that Man U and the Glazers are an example of what happens when fans revolt. But at the same time, you still have anger, but you still have folks going into Old Trafford to watch the games. Fans are pissed, but they still go. This would be if fans are pissed and then they don't go. So when you get to the fans are pissed and then they don't go, that's the element in all of this that you stare at. Yesterday in the Prem, it was Fulham and Wolves for Monday Night Football. And you had three penalties. You had three penalties called in the second half. One at 90 plus 3. You had an incident where a player headbutts another. Nothing is called. And so you had all kinds of chaos. And not all of it was called. Like I said, we keep giving Bart so much stuff to talk about on Wednesdays that, at least this week, Bart might end up having to do did not see the All-Stadium Tifo over the weekend at Manchester United. Saw what was going on at Everton about them being mad at the Premier League. Did not see what was going on at Man U. I was at Auburn watching Iron Bowl and looking at SEC officiating on a 4th and 31. Second half, you have 3 penalties, extended VAR reviews, and morning Alex. And Alex's Newcastle putting a number on Chelsea. But yesterday, we had a couple of things happen, and we had some things that didn't happen. But too late in the match, and you have this particular incident go down, and it ends up with an opportunity for a win. It was a 2-2 draw until this moment. Martin Tyler on the call once again, thanks to our friends at NBC Sports Soccer.
I'll tell you what, he can be thankful Kiernan doesn't drop to the floor there. Whether or not Vinicius actually makes contact here.
At the moment he's got a yellow.
I'll tell you what, he's in trouble here.
Upgraded.
Oh, he's going to be in trouble for that. I'm telling you, Martin. That is, you can't do that.
They've been on the wrong end of a couple of penalty decisions before tonight. They might think they're on the wrong end of another one here with the first penalty, but
I don't think it doesn't look like João Gomez offers a leg, does it? Have a look. He does,
He does.
He certainly does.
My first reaction was that it was a penalty, right? Ooh.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think they'll give it, Martin. I do. Goes with the left. He controls it with his left
foot. It doesn't matter that he doesn't see him, is
no.
it? He's got the final instructions. And an eventful second half for Michael Salisbury. Very rarely do you see officials go to a monitor and go, no, I'm going to stick with my original. And it is the penalty. The third of this half, the second for Fulham. But deep into the night here at Craven Cottage, Willian fires in his second penalty and they lead 3-2. They lead for the third time this evening. And there's not too much time to hang on this time. Brilliant job done by the Brazilian.
Big penalty. You need big players to step up and knock them in, because he's already rolled one in the opposite corner. Again, just stops and staggers that run, but hits this one hard, whips it across Jose Zar, and finds that side netting perfectly. Oh, you can barely watch Marco Silva.
Well, Wolves have scored 20 Premier League penalties in a row. Fulham have had a number 20 here.
There you go. And so we bring in Jared Smith. Hi, Jared. It's been too long.
Yeah, it has.
So we were going over the craziness of yesterday, where you had three PKs in the second half. That was one that wasn't called on Vinicius for a headbutt. I guess the headbutt was too soft. It was a gentle headbutt. He didn't get a card. And then you end up with a penalty in the box, third PK of the half, and Fulham goes on to win 3-2 at Craven Cottage. So, yeah, we're giving Bart a lot of fodder when it comes to his appearance tomorrow.
Yeah, I missed most of this.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So then let me reset. Let me reset with you, because it's been a while since you've been here. And Glenn Davis joining us at the top of the hour to discuss everything MLS Cup playoffs. So let me dial it back with you, and we'll go back and revisit this later. So we're down to the final four, and for the most part, it was just 1-goal games, except for obviously Columbus and Orlando. What do you think of the matches from the weekend, the conference semis?
I mean, Yeah, it was kind of a weird. There was kind of like weird vibes for all the games. And I think some of it, like, I didn't think the quality suffered nearly. Like, everyone made a big deal about the quality and the break in the Philadelphia Cincy game, but that's the only one where I really felt like there was a drop in quality, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that neither Philadelphia nor Cincinnati really play with the ball much.
Yeah.
Like they're chaotic, disjointed, pressing, long ball, transition anyway. I didn't think we saw the same problems with Columbus, with Orlando to an extent. Orlando just laid an egg, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they laid an egg.
Yeah.
It was there for them, and at home, I don't think they got a shot off on goal until like deep in the second half. I think they went to halftime with like 6 shots and none of them were on goal.
Yeah.
At home.
Mm-hmm.
In the playoffs.
Yes.
I didn't think we saw that really with Houston, or and a lot of it was like Houston just wouldn't let Kansas City have the ball, which was hilarious. The Benny Ball revival continues.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a bit,
dude. It's so much fun. And then LA and Seattle really didn't seem to have a problem with this. Like everyone for a couple hours got up in arms about, wow, this layoff's ruining the quality. Like, no, Philadelphia and Cincinnati ruined that by themselves just because of the way they play. I mean, because it's like some of it is circumstance, some of it is how they're going to play. It's the same way of like that time that Brian Kelly took Notre Dame into a legitimate tropical storm
mm-hmm.
and tried to throw the ball like 30 times. You can't run an air raid when it's 25 degrees and freezing rain. In the same way that like the way they play,
wind's in your back.
Yeah,
2 quarters.
It's even better if it's a crosswind,
Mm-hmm.
where the ball just turns into a 2-seamer every time.
Yes.
And yeah, man, I wasn't. The other games, like everyone got really upset about that, and I felt like the other games really kind of drove that point home of this is more of a you issue than like a league-wide issue, and some of it is kind of balancing. Like you're building around the international windows, and that's a question for FIFA: is why the hell do we have so many damn international windows right now?
Uh-huh.
Because it's hard for any team right now in any league to get anything done. You couldn't have anything resembling consistency because you're playing for a couple weeks and then you're right back in an international break. And then like it's just funny to me because we had the women's international break. They come back. Men hit their international break. Now the women are about to go right back on break again. Mm-hmm. The call-ups just went for the women. Like, it is absurd how quickly everything is just flowing with these international breaks, man. It's just exhausting.
Mm-hmm. And you gotta compress them. You can't just be in and out and in and out and in and out.
No, I agree. It's a lot. But as far as those games themselves from the weekend, like I said, like Orlando laid an egg.
Mm-hmm.
Columbus looked real good, and the thing with Columbus that we're still going to have to figure out is how do they close games out?
Yes,
because Schulte stood on his damn head because they came really close to the situation that I talked about before the playoffs, which is what happens when Columbus has a 1-goal lead if they give up a goal in like the last 5 minutes of gameplay.
Yeah.
And have to lose that momentum going into a shootout. Schulte stood on his head.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be tough against a Cincinnati team that has a guy who just won MLS MVP, and is getting production right now. The hell is real should be a lot of fun in that regard.
Hell is real, the conference championship.
Hey, they both did their job. Cincinnati and Philly wasn't pretty. They got it across the line. And Jim Curtin, I think, is still upset, but that's always going to be the case. Meanwhile, like out west, I kept waiting for Seattle to find that breakthrough, and they never did. And it was kind of like LAFC's been so weird this year. they haven't been that juggernaut of consistency, but they seem more sound defensively.
Yeah.
They got one great opportunity, and Boyanga put it away, and Seattle just could not find that breakthrough. And look, for LAFC, man, they did the thing we talk about in the playoffs. The most important number on that board for you is the number next to your opponent's name. If you can keep it at 0, you're going to be in amazing shape.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they did. They did a really good job of it. I think Seattle's got some damn decisions to make because Rui Diaz is not what he was. Ladero's gone. You got some young players, but are they what are they? What is Jordan Morris going to be going forward? What can he give you going forward? Seattle's got some decisions to make about how they want to retool this / kind of like a mini rebuild that roster kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't think they're in the worst shape by any means, not anything like that. But I do want to see how they fit some of those spots that Portland, honestly, like Portland was in this spot of you had those guys who were just stalwarts who'd been there for so long, who were just you counter on them, and then they just think they're not the same guy anymore. I know we'll talk to Glenn about Houston, but I mean, I like I've said before, Ben Olsen should have been in the top 3 of manager of the year. And you're gonna block out Nazi or Noonan or Carnell, but that man took a club that has been I feel like Houston has at times felt like what we talked about in Atlanta as a basketball city, like what could be a sleeping giant.
Mm-hmm.
That if you just get someone in here who could just do the damn job right. And Ben Olsen rolled into Houston, who has gone through multiple managers in the last few years. Basically grabbed everyone by the scruff of the neck and said, here's how we're going to do this. And they did it. And I am infinitely perplexed at the idea of Ben Olsen not getting more respect for manager of the year with what he did, because man, he's already won one trophy. I don't really care that Messi was there or wasn't there. For U.S. Open Cup final, they slapped Miami around.
Yeah.
In a cup final, got a trophy already, and here they are facing LAFC. And are you really gonna bet against them right now? Like that game, I don't know what the juice boxes are for that game.
Big underdog. We talked about it yesterday.
I don't buy it. I know. I get why they are.
They're specifically judged.
I don't think they are.
No, and it's even gotten worse. Wow. Just checking the Christmas side dishes. LAFC is a minus 161. 90-minute draw is a plus 309. And Houston to win outright is north of plus 400 in the composite. Take that and go.
Yeah, I'm taking that because
take it now.
I forget who it was the other night during the LAFC game. It might have been Nico, friend of the program.
Yeah.
It wasn't him. It was somebody else was mentioning that LAFC, their record is so dependent on who scores first.
Yeah.
If they score first, they're in great shape. But when they have to come from behind, it's so hard for them. And man, do you really want to bet against Houston? Let's break it down further. Let's compartmentalize this down. Are you gonna bet against playoff Franco Escobar?
There you go.
Like MLS Robert Horry.
Uh-huh.
So
big shot Bob of Major League Soccer.
Dude, he shows up every time you need him.
I'll have to. I mean, so we'll bring up Big Shot Bob to Glenn and sit there and see if Glenn agrees that Big Shot Bob is is Franco Escobar come the playoffs.
He's been doing it in the playoffs for years.
Oh, by the way, the number keeps getting worse as we stare at it. Houston's up to a plus 404 in 90 minutes.
Unless they know something we don't. Man, I will take that 404 and run with it. I don't care that the game's in LAFC. I think Houston genuinely believes in themselves enough to go out there and absolutely slap somebody around.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be immensely entertained if that happened. We're gonna end up with Houston Cincinnati final, just absolutely sicko energy. What would be a really fun game?
Oh, absolutely, it absolutely would. But yeah, you were talking about Seattle. Seattle, I think we were going over the rosters yesterday because decisions have to be made within X number of days after you're out.
Yeah, the deeper you're in the playoffs, the shorter amount of time you get. It's wild.
And there's, I think, 12 or 13 decisions that have to be made for Seattle specifically when it comes to dudes, and it's guys that are names. I think Rusnak is part of it. Montero is a part of it. Rui Diaz and Ladero are a part of it. So, I mean, there are decisions that you've got to sit there and make when it comes to this group, and it will be intriguing to see what you're going to be staring at if you are Seattle, because as I clicked once again from our friends at Transfermarkt, who decided they want to load things very, very slowly. I mean, it's a lot of big names. I think Stephen Fry is a part of the discussion because unless he's got option years that we don't know about, things like that. But there are a lot of those big names, and they're the veteran names and the veteran players that are really making bank here, that they're going to have to sit there and decide. Rusnak, Ladero, Montero, João Paulo, Eber, Kellen Rowe, Arriaga, Stephen Cleveland, Josh Atencio, Jackson Reagan. So you got some decisions to make on some young guys too, and Abdoulaye Sissoko, and with some backups in Paul Rothrock, who we saw with Tacoma Defiance and Next Pro. I mean, Seattle's got some decisions they got to make. 11,000 decisions that they have to make come the offseason. It's like 13, 14 guys.
Yeah, it's going to be complicated. It's a lot of decisions they have to make. It's a lot of how do you want to rebuild this going forward, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go in and you had these guys who were part of your core for an extended period of time, who were great guys, who are just not what they were physically. They can't do the job the same way they did before. And that's going to be a job for that front office to figure out, who do we keep? How do we structure this financially? Because then you don't want to end up in a situation of where you end up paying somebody for what they did in a cap league, and then the ship is underwater.
Paying them for what they did and continuing to have to pay them for thinking that that's what they can still do. And that's the larger issue with all of this. It's the first time we've had you on in a while. And we've had a couple of editions of Prem and Proper, and Maddie and Drew, get to vent their spleens once a week. And we've decided Mondays at 10:30, we'll have the last half hour of the show. It'll be the review for Prem and Proper. But Spurs have now lost 3 in a row. And there is a great wringing of hands and gnashing of teeth for folks that are, panicking in the streets and running with their hands flailing in the air like they actually do care. And I wanted to have you discuss and or explain what folks are seeing with Ange Ball, that this is what you get with Ange Postecoglou as your manager. And this is the first time that we've had you here since Spurs have started losing matches in a row and mass panic has started. And people are running in the streets wondering, how do we fix this? But this is what you get with Ange, and I wanted you to kind of break this down and remind folks what they're getting when it comes to Ange Postecoglou.
Well, I mean, he's going to play his style, and it doesn't really matter who he has or not. I thought he proved that pretty well when they played their style down to 9 men. Doesn't really matter to him who's available. He's going to ask anyone if you're on the field, you're expected to do a specific job. And that's on you to do that job. And if it doesn't work, they're going to keep doing it, and it doesn't really matter. And I get everyone's kind of wringing their hands, and I think there's a lot to unpack from it. If for no other reason, what you're ending up with is you have a manager who came in with expectations, hit the ground running, surpassed those expectations from the jump. One manager of the month, that kind of thing, and racked up some injuries, and now results are kind of turning against him, maybe, just a little bit. But it's also the fact that it's Spurs.
Yeah,
it's the same. Who it is. Who it is also has to be considered with all of this. It's the same way that if the Atlanta Falcons are up 21 points and they give up a touchdown, everyone's immediately going to turn on like, oh boy, here comes the collapse, because it's the association with Spurs.
Right.
In Scotland, we would do this with Hibs. That it's the association of they're going to bottle it. It's the expectation. So other clubs, you'd also probably get the side eye too of like, oh man, they're just coming back down to earth. But because it is Spurs, the jokes write themselves. And so that's going to factor into the reaction from it. But yeah, he's going to keep on doing. He's going to do this. He is going to play his style no matter who he has. If he has to go get people at the academy, he'll do it. He will very much come back with his shielder on it.
And I mean, this is like seeing a team that runs the spread. Doesn't matter if they're up 20 or down 20. They're still going to run spread, and they're still going to, run verts, and everybody's going to do their thing. That's how this team is wired. They're going to do things. Ange has them doing things a certain way. Doesn't matter if James Madison is injured or not. Doesn't matter if there's no one up there to help Heung-min Son or not. This is how they're going to play, and this is the downside of it, I guess, is probably the best way to describe it. When folks are injured, you're not at 100%. You're still going to do your thing. And as you said, doesn't matter. If there's a 16 or a 17-year-old in the academy that has been busting, as you know what, that practice, and Ange is like, I'm going to give this kid some reps and give him some minutes. That's what he's going to do, because those are the individuals that are grasping what he wants them to do on a day in and day out basis.
Yeah, they're just going to keep doing what they do. He is almost to a point of like you will start to see the frustration of people when they'll be like, why don't you just take a step back, just I don't know, play it super pragmatic, do something different. Nope. Very much. Very much believes in every single aspect of what he's doing.
Yeah.
And they're going to keep running out there doing their thing their way. And that's not going to change.
No.
So, yeah. Probably going to lose some more games. Probably going to win some games. Probably going to draw some games. Yeah, I'd imagine it's going to go like every other season in the history of the sport, except for, the Invincibles.
Yes. And Spurs have lost after going unbeaten in their first 10. They've lost 3 in a row, and they've got Manchester City coming up this weekend. So that'll be fun. But, yeah, right now they're in 5th. They're 3 points out of – literally they are 3 points out of second. Yeah, they are 3 points out of second place in Manchester City, and you have you get the impression that this season is going to be nuts and crazy and off the wall, because right now Arsenal's at 30 points. Manchester City's at 29. Liverpool's at 28, ahead of Aston Villa on goal difference. Spurs are 5th with all the chaos and having lost 3 in a row. They're at 26 points. They're in the Europa League spot. Manchester United have won 3 in a row and 4 of 5. They're at 24. Newcastle 23. Brighton's at 22. And they're unbeaten in their last 4, but they only have 1 win. It's the first time that they've had to deal with international competition. So Brighton's having to juggle that, and that's kind of like that first group that's within range of each other. But no, you're going to.
You could be Chelsea.
Ooh, yeah. Right now, Chelsea is the beginning of that second group in 10th place at 16 points, and you are 3 points from being in 15th, and legitimately, I mean, obviously right now there's no, push about them being anywhere close to being relegated. But yeah, you're at the top of the bottom. You're the top of the bottom half of the table. Say that 10 times fast. 16 points, and you're a part of that street fight from basically 10th through 16th, separated by 4 points. You're at the head of that, but you've hit each column once in your last 3, and you get Brighton next time out. So it's going to be Chelsea continuing to spend a lot of money, try to grab as many folks as humanly possible, and make sure that they get all the toys, throw them together, tell whoever's the manager, hey, do this, and the results are what the results are right now. They're even-keeled. And Mauricio Pochettino said yesterday he was debating at 4-4-5 of not giving them Monday off because he was so mad about what happened against Newcastle. So it's like, I'm so mad that we lost 4-1. You may not get your Monday off. No word on whether or not they did get Monday off or actually did have to go to work. But no, it was funny. I'm mad you're not getting Monday off. How long are you with us this morning, by the way?
Oh, another 15 or so.
Okay. So Glenn Davis hopping on here in just a little bit to discuss what's going on, and I found the Glenn Davis SDH promo, by the way. Did some searching, did some searching, and I found it. So we will welcome him in with that. But on the flip side of our Glenn Davis visit, we will discuss everything going on in the Premier League. We'll continue our discussion yesterday with what happened with Fulham and Wolves, and Gary O'Neill is less than pleased about what went down yesterday. And with the loss, they are in 12th place. They're a part of that gaggle, #gaggle. And Fulham is drawing closer to Wolves. They're just behind now on goal difference. So once again, you've got all those teams, 3 teams at 15 points, 3 teams at 16 points. That's 10 through 14 in the Premier League right now. And they're all going to beat each other up. You're going to have that first group that we talked about. You got the second group, and then you've got the group trying to stave off getting relegated and see if a 4th or 5th team gets drawn into that discussion. We'll see. But, Everton had all of their fans holding up pink placards with the Premier League Lions saying corrupt for the game against Manchester United. And, I mean, it was great visuals. They're mad, but they got whacked 3-0. And the Garnacho bicycle kick was slightly above average. Definitely slightly above average. And, so we'll definitely get all that squared away when it comes to life after Monday. And yes.
No, I'm just laughing.
Yes. I mean, as you know, so sorry, I'm efforting Glenn. So, let's see. Having to sending it to an email, and it almost might be like, let's see, filibuster for a minute. I'm writing an email.
I mean, yeah, what we got.
Yeah, we'll talk about Champions League and other stuff on the other side.
Yeah, it's fine, man. What we got. So you've got Eastern Conference Final, Western Conference Final coming up between these 2 teams, or these 4 teams at this point. Yeah, I am begging personally for a Cincinnati Houston final. That'd be funny, and it would be interesting, and kind of a certain amount of crow I would have to eat in that situation as somebody who did not really trust Cincinnati in a playoff situation. That being said, Cincinnati has done exactly what I said they couldn't, with what I said they had to do, which is they've gotten ahead in games. The thing that got me nervous about Cincinnati was how often they would fall behind and rescue things. Falling behind and having to rescue things is tougher in the playoffs. But at the same time, if we want to do styles make fights with the Eastern Conference,
right? For
a team that is capable of coming back, like Cincinnati is, especially if the game gets stretched out in transition moments.
Yeah.
They're playing against a team in Columbus that really likes to let you back into the game.
Yes. 75th minute and beyond.
I think Columbus is, at this point, if we want to belabor the fighting analogy,
Yep.
they are a heavy swinger in the early rounds.
So basically, so it's like Hagler Hearns. Was it Hagler Hearns 2? Where they're just taking slots at each other and it doesn't last out of the third round?
I mean, but that's what they want. Like, Columbus doesn't, like, it's kind of like Rocky IV, man. Where you're taking Drago into the 10th round where he's not familiar with it.
You cut him. He's a man.
But you're taking him into deeper rounds where he's not familiar. He's not comfortable with it. And Columbus, yeah, they showed you against Orlando that they can weather it. Patrick Schulte was able to stand on his head. But Columbus wants to bury you.
Yeah.
They want to hit you with the kind of avalanche that LAFC was hitting people with in 2018 through 2020, I guess. 21 was kind of weird for them. And then, last year, 22, they're a different team than they were in like 18, 19, and 20. Because that was an era where, like, you were just waiting for Columbus, for LAFC to just basically pull the piece of wood out of the way and let the avalanche fall. Columbus can do that. They can hit you with like 3 goals in 10 minutes, kind of thing, and just bury you under a mountain. And that's what they would like to do. But if they don't, then they got to hang on. And doing that against a Cincy team, it's a really risky proposition.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with that game. Is man, styles make fights, and it could be a really fun fight.
Yeah, I mean it's just going to depend on it's going to depend, I think, on who gets it early. But I think to your point about Columbus, that you catch them late, and then you're right there. Best 11 is
you can. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now.
Yep.
I'm trying to pull it up anyway. It's not on their website yet.
It's not on the website yet because I was trying to find it too.
That was just easier for me to pull up. But whatever.
Yes, exactly.
Let's go check.
nothing like
going to be mad about.
Nothing like breaking news, and you can't sit there and watch it. We know that Thiago Almada, and Yorgi Giacomakis are part of the best 11. Thank you, Ricky. Okay, so Ricky's doing fantastic producer work, and it's done by MLS, our friends at MLS PR and MLS Communications. So MLS Awards Best 11, you click on it, and hey, it's like Best 11. We've got Best 11. Best 11's out, and we can discuss that because Ache is on it and all these other things. But for the first time in a long time, and I'm absolutely, I reached out, and he actually answered the phone. It's like, oh God, Nelson's reaching out. What's going on here? And I go back to the blasts of the past, and I found this promo. And he's having his morning coffee, so he definitely needs that before he listens to this. So here, I found this promo.
Hey, Glenn Davis here in Houston, Texas, a big fan of soccer down here. And remember, soccer matters.
Because it does, Glenn Davis. Good morning.
All right. Good morning, John. Wow, I forgot I did that. That was pretty good. I probably didn't screw the one-liner up.
Oh man, it's great to have you here, my friend. You still got active stuff going on. Well done.
Yeah, we're making things happen. We love the game, just like you and Jared, and it's a privilege to be able to be involved with something you like all the time. I always tell people, it beats working.
Mm-hmm. So we have, I guess, I'll go ahead and do this and blow out everybody's ears if I can find it. But here we go. Best 11's out, and some guy that Ache is in on the midfield for the best 11. What kind of a year has it been for you to see Hector Herrera go after it?
Well, the big question before the year, I think, was, how engaged was he going to be? There was a lot of rumors in the offseason. He was not happy. that there was a potential that he was pushing to leave after last season. But we all know he was preoccupied with the Mexican national team in the World Cup. The roster has been changed over a lot more. So the first question answered was he engaged? Absolutely. I don't think there's a player in this league that has affected an overall club culturally on and off the field as much as he has. It has been an absolute joy to watch him leading young players, helping to create a culture here. And let's not forget, I mean, he plays in all thirds of the field. So he may be back building the game up from you, picking the ball up off the goalkeeper. He may be back making a tackle in the box. The middle of the field, he's working all that combination play. And then essentially he's a playmaker in the final third. So what he's done on and off the field, I wish the city of Houston and maybe some of the other mainstream media could pick up on what a star he has been and what a season he's had.
Jarrett, go for it.
Getting away from him for a moment, because as good as he has been this year, really as people watch this coming up this weekend with the Western Conference Final, who's a player who isn't as well known to a national audience that they need to keep an eye on going into this game, especially if they want to tell their friends that they knew so-and-so before it was cool?
Yeah, there's some really, really good stories. I mean, that's almost a hard one to answer because there's some good ones. I mean, obviously, look, I don't know if the country has picked up on this. I think people have, but I don't know to what extent. But when Griffin Dorsey became the right back and had opportunity in the Leagues Cup and then won the starting right back position, he added a huge element that was missing from this team, and that's width. Every good attack has to have width. We saw the great combination play with Herrera, Carrasquilla, Artur, who's also been exceptional. We saw a lot of the short, tight give and goes, the aesthetic value in a lot of that. But that needed width in order to bloom even more. And it got width with Dorsey, who, all of a sudden was flying forward. They scored a goal against Santos and won the starting right back position. Now, this growth in this man is 180 degrees. Now, a lot of that has to do with the culture with Herrera, more hardened pros, Sviatchenko, Artur. I think that lifted some of the guys that were a part of these poor Dynamo teams, frankly, that did not have the level of quality, and I say this respectfully, that it should to compete in MLS. So he's a great story. And I think the other one you have to really look at in combination with that is your guy, Franco Escobar, who was brought to be the right back, now has to play left back, which is not an easy thing to do if you're predominantly right-footed. And then the addition of Eric Sviatchenko in the summer window, just a great reader of the game, composed, exceptional defender, a guy that played at Celtic.
Okay, so since you mentioned Sviatchenko, if I could get my upper plate to work, we'll put that discussion, we'll bookmark that, put it over here, because that's been a talking point all week long. You had 16 different goal scorers for Houston this season. I mean, I think that speaks to what Benny Ball has been able to do there. I looked at the number and I was like, wow, 16 different dudes. I think that says a lot to the depth and the balance that you've been able to put out there as well. Well,
I think so, and they've found ways to win, right? I mean, we've called a lot of games where they've scored first and you're going, you just got to take that second goal and make it a little more comfortable and not be under duress and pressure. But they've just found ways to win. I always go back to the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup final against Inter Miami. Absolutely blow Inter Miami off the field the first 45 minutes. But should have put that game away, and it should have been an easy night. And sometimes, you get a second or third goal, people stop running. It's an easy night for you, or an easier night, let's just say. And, of course, Messi didn't play. But that's been the scenario a lot this year, Dynamo couldn't get a second against Sporting. Left them open for the potential of a controversial call, which could easily have gone the other way. So, I think the one worry going into these games, if you don't get the first goal, is there's not a lot of natural goal scorers. But, at this point, I should just be quiet because they just seem to be defying the odds every game, and they're only 2 games away from it. And we have seen grind-them-out teams win MLS.
So I think my next question for you is there a specific place that I need to send my complaint to Ben Olsen not being in the top 3 for Manager of the Year?
Whoever votes on it. I mean,
I
think that's what we always have to go with. It's people start getting mad at the guy who wins it. It's like, say he didn't vote.
I know.
He just put together a great season with Cincinnati. There's a lot going on down here, and Ben is very quick to compliment his staff. Listen, you have 17 different players. Okay, you got hardened pros on the team now. That's the moral of the story. He has players to work with now. You can't really say that's occurred here in the past because it was a little bit of a smoke and mirrors in the past. I mean, he's got players now to work with. He's done a fantastic job. I think you point right to his relationship with Hector Herrera that we see from afar. Everybody knows that a manager has to get a superstar on the same page with him, and that looks like a tremendous relationship.
I know that you mentioned playoff Franco, and to be able to go from one end to the other and try to kind of do things counter to your brain. I know it's a little difficult sometimes, but what has it been like for you to see someone take this role like Franco Escobar has, go from one side to the other? And he just seems there's nothing wrong. Everything's, you just pick up your lunch pail and you go to work. What's it been like seeing playoff Franco go to work?
Yeah, as a former center back who got stuck out wide once, I never want to go through that experience again. I think that was worse than my divorce, honestly. Look, this guy's a hardened pro and he is a wing back, so he can play wing back, but he's got the Argentine grit. He's intelligent. He helps you control the side of the field. He's got a young guy in front of him who's benefiting from him and Nelson Quinones. So I think, to your point, I think what you're bringing out really is, wow, what a performance he's put in for the Dynamo, being able to adjust like that. Not everybody can do that, and that's not an easy thing to do. I just thought it was very fitting that he scored the goal. Got a great run at the delivery from Herrera and pounded in the header. But, if a ball comes across to you and you're not competent with your left foot as a predominantly right-footed guy, a lot of times your first touch goes back towards pressure. So it's kind of a simple theory, but it's not an easy thing to do. He's been incredible. He really has been good.
Jared, go for it.
Houston's been a market that has always felt like a sleeping giant.
Don't say that, Jared. Please don't say that. This is not a sleeping giant. It may be a sleeping giant in MLS. It is not a sleeping giant as a soccer market. Okay, everybody says that. It's incredible how this moniker gets picked up.
I know. I'm talking about it from the MLS perspective.
I know you are. I'm just giving you a hard time.
He's had his cup of coffee. It's kicked in.
I'm ready. Let's go.
No, yeah, it's but from the MLS side, and how has, and I know as an overall soccer market, we know what it is, but how has the response and the growth been this season through the entire process in terms of just the fan base, people showing up, flags, stickers, shirts popping up around town? How has the buy-in been from the fan base with it?
From start to finish or currently?
I guess from start to finish, just because the whole season feels
unless you talk about it in the context of start to finish, you're not going to get if you go to the stadium now, it's packed, there's energy, there's excitement, there's new media jumping on board. The question is, will they be there next July when it's 95 degrees? That's a question mark. If you look at the attendance in the league, the Dynamo were 29 out of 29. Okay, dead last. Now, I don't want to be a buzzkill here, but you also have to think about reality and what this moment can do if capitalized on by the franchise. We down here saw a week where Guatemala sold the stadium out. The entire place was blue. Then El Salvador sold the stadium out. It was entirely blue. And then 2 top teams from Mexico came in and sold it out. And in between that, there was a Dynamo game that filled about 30% of the stadium. So to keep it simple, to me, there is this giant, it's like an iCloud of authentic soccer fans in Houston that have not been tapped into. You have a product now that fits perfectly for a market that's full of Central Americans, South Americans, Mexicans, Europeans that love soccer and love quality soccer. There never has been a Dynamo team that on the ball is this competent when it comes to, the way it plays the game aesthetically. And I'm not dissing on 6 and 7 teams, because that was a completely different team built in a different way to play in a small field at Robertson Stadium. But this is an incredibly marketable product. Great leaders, great personalities, some really funny guys as well, and they all play for each other. So that still is a question mark, but we're in the midst of the ride, and everybody's jumping on the train now.
So then how do you turn that question mark into an exclamation point?
You have to go out to the authentic soccer community, in my mind, to go back to simply what I said, without getting too deep and detailed into it. That's out there for you. There's a lot of things that need to be done when it comes to the understanding of Houston as a market, the understanding of Houston as a soccer market.
And I'm, that's why I wanted to make you like guru of everything, to sit there and it's like, okay, how do we fix this and turn this around? Because you have been, for the longest time, you've been the Pied Piper of, hey, we really can have something special here in a market with a club and an experience. And that's why, you see something like what Houston is doing with the run that they're on, and you want to try to capitalize on something like this with a new owner, a couple of years removed, new investment, those kinds of things. And that's why I wanted to ask this.
I don't want the margins to be slim, and it has to be the playoffs when there's a buzz about soccer down here.
Yeah.
I mean, why can't it be like Atlanta, where there's a buzz every single game? And I think authentic soccer fans are the ones that'll sit in the heat and drink beer, in the heat of July and August. And I feel like we're bypassing them a little bit down here. But there's raw material here now. There's a quality team. There's personalities. There's a coach with a personality. There's no excuses for this team not to be fully ingrained in Houston. But this city's given me everything, so it's why I'm passionate about it, the soccer community, and I just feel very strongly that this shouldn't be something that we only get excited about when we make the playoffs, right? So I want the long-term, comprehensive game in and game out, going to that stadium and feeling a buzz.
Jarrett, go for it.
Yeah, and I actually want to ask about the last game, because you mentioned taking down Sporting Kansas City, and it's such a weird game just because it felt like Houston just kind of floated on the outside of a lot of people in the national media, for worse, not even for better this year. And then everyone wrote off SKC, and it kind of felt like this whole thing where it didn't get nearly as much press as it should have, that game, for being as fun as it was. Is that something that this team can kind of internalize, the idea of, hey, they don't want to give us all the attention, we'll go give them an excuse to pay attention?
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes that's made up of the press, but I guess I think it's fair to say that, yeah, you think you're bypassed. But look, if you've had 8 years of futility outside of 2017, why do you deserve it? You got to go earn it. I mean, that's the way I look. I mean, I heard Michigan the other day, like they won against, and they're like, it's us against the world. I'm like, yeah, great. I'm tired of the it's us against the world, right? If you're a professional, you want to win a championship, and that's what these guys are. I don't think they're going out on the field, we're going to prove to America we're the best. No, I mean, look, the people that make predictions at the beginning of the year, do they really have time to do a lot of homework? They're looking at last season's results, and they're going, oh, the Dynamo were 13th out of 14. Well, I guess I better put them somewhere around, 12 to 14, right? But for me, it was a playoff team from the start, simply because of Herrera, because of the acquisition of Artur, and then Coco Carrasquillo. I'm like, now, okay, you finally have a midfield after all these years that can protect the back four, that can keep the ball. That in itself has to get you in the playoffs in an 18, when 18 out of 29 teams make it. So that was my theory. I figured 5 to 8, somewhere in there. I never thought they would be 4 and get home field advantage. But I think, look, you utilize anything you can for motivation. I heard a lot of people, it's the rivalry with Sporting. And I'm looking at the roster going, none of these guys have ever played in that game, really. So I don't think that's like the priority. That's a great thing for the fans. It's awesome. But, I guess maybe Middle America sometimes, the third coast down here and Kansas City, who's had outstanding success for so many years and sells out all the time. I think they get bypassed.
Another couple of minutes here with Glenn Davis. It's great to always have Glenn on because we all know that soccer matters. Since you mentioned Sviatchenko at the beginning of the segment, we'll go ahead and get into that. A lot of folks are sitting there saying handball, no handball. It's been the great discussion, or one of the great discussions for the first couple of days this week. As you watched it unfold and then got the benefit of replay and stuff, what was your vision about what happened there with the no call at the near post with Sviatchenko?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy because the Dynamo had just scored, right? And as you guys know this, all of a sudden there's a really good chance. And it was kind of a chaotic sequence with Polito being saved by Clark. And then he's on the line. His hands are by his side. It happened so fast initially. I didn't know it hit his hands. I thought it might have hit his chest. Then on the replay, it clearly hits his hand. And look, we can all have our opinion, penalty or no penalty. It only matters what one man thinks. And VAR, right? Mm-hmm. It's totally subjective. It's never going to be a rule that's clear. But we all know that penalty has been given by many, many people, okay? So it's a controversial moment. Even Ben Olsen admitted he thought it was a penalty. So, the Dynamo got the benefit of the doubt, but anybody who wins an MLS Cup is, you can go back and say, at some point they got a break here or there. So maybe that's a good sign for the Houston Dynamo looking out.
Jarrett, go for it.
Goal scored off that set piece going up against a team in LA that also likes their fair amount of set pieces. And you speaking as a defender, how much fun is that to have those moments knowing you have somebody who can deliver a dead ball like that makes any set piece a kind of edge of your seat kind of moment where we can score, we can turn the narrative of this game, and we can turn basically the entire focus of this game with somebody who can put a ball on a dime like that, even against the run of play.
Yeah, I think it's an area where the Dynamo really haven't capitalized on. Jarrett and John, the delivery that Herrera gives you, and there's movement in his delivery. This one he puts right on the edge of the 6 with the zonal defense, right? And you'll see Rosero trying to get out there and stick his head on it, but Franco Escobar gets a great 4-yard run, 5-yard run at it, which to me has always been the key to heading. And it's so hard to get a run at a lot of these set pieces nowadays because of the clutching and the grabbing. But you see on the video, Rosero's trying to get out there, and it's all of a sudden, like a flash, Franco gets in there and sticks his head on it, and it ends up being the game winner. But I think in the future, the Dynamo are going to want to utilize Hector Herrera's delivery more to their advantage. He tries to pick out Sviatchenko a lot, and they just haven't produced a goal yet. They've come close, and every game I'm like, okay, maybe it's today. But his delivery is wicked. And there's another pretty simple thing too, that the Dynamo get the ball off their feet so much quicker, right? And I think a lot of that is the influence of Herrera saying, hey, get the ball to people's feet quicker so they have another second or two before they're put under pressure in the modern game. And I see that in warm-up. He's slamming balls at people, right? And they're having to control it. And you're either rising with the tide or, you're going to be anchored to the bottom somewhere.
All right, so wrapping up with you, we were talking about the juice boxes heading into this match, and the juice boxes actually increased in hour number 1. Houston is a plus 403 on the board heading to Los Angeles. Would you take that plus 403 if you were a neutral?
Okay, explain that to me because I'm not a betting guy.
Okay, so basically, if you put in $100,
yeah,
then you got it at plus 403. Basically, you'd be getting 4 times your investment back.
Where can I place that bet? Because I will place that bet.
There you go.
I think the Dynamo are going to win in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
I don't think they're overawed by them. I think a lot of it will have to do with individual moments with the 2 skilled players and Bouanga and obviously Vela. But I think the Dynamo midfield matches up beautifully with them. They don't concede a lot of goals. They've gone there and won before. Not that that means anything at this point, because that was a lot earlier in the season. But I think it's a good bet. Off air, you have to tell me where I can place that.
Well, I mean, any juice box purveyor, I think that you can see that. All of the ones that you see on
so it's 4-1 on $100.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah. So are we, actually.
This would be my first MLS bet. Am I allowed to do that as a guy who calls the games?
That might get you in trouble there, sir.
Yeah, maybe I better not be saying this publicly. I am not going to bet.
But I know a guy. You sit there and it's like you open up your wallet or the bell jar in the kitchen. You sit there and go, okay, look, I need you to do something for me.
So some guy in a trench coat is going to come knock on my door. That's how I do the bet. Okay.
Exactly. That's how.
I'm going to say the Dynamo win, but I'm not going to place a bet.
There you go. Excellent. All right. So hit the promo for me. How can folks keep an eye and keep an ear on everything that you're doing there in Houston? Fantastic.
Yeah. Tonight, every Tuesday night, I have a radio show, Soccer Matters, as you mentioned. It's on ESPN 97.5, Twitter, Instagram, at Glenn Davis Sock. And then on YouTube, a lot of interviews, like I did a really interesting one with Hector Herrera recently. My friend Jordi Sunier in Barcelona comes on a lot. So it's a lot of fun on YouTube. It's the channel is YouTube Soccer Matters.
There you go. So can I talk to your producer about getting at Glenn Davis Sock on the show again, same time next week to discuss what happened?
You can 100% do that. Let me run that by my people, John. There's a heavy web of people I got to go through, but my gut is I think it can happen.
Excellent. So next Tuesday, win or lose, we will have the return of Glenn Davis, golden ticket holder. Golden ticket status means that you can crash anytime, my friend, but we're looking forward to it. Thanks for coming back on. It's been entirely too long. Good luck this weekend, and we'll be keeping an eye on you, and we'll be looking forward to catching up with you again next week.
John Gerardo is really fun. I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
All right. He's going to enjoy his coffee and do his thing. And so it's a busy day for Glenn Davis. He gets to hang out with us, and we get to talk the benefits of everything going on with Houston soccer. That was fun. It's always fun to have Glenn on the show. And we got to introduce Glenn to the idea of juice boxes.
For better or worse.
It's like,
yeah, no, I don't disagree with him, though. That's 403 is such an absurd number for a team
it is, absolutely.
That has shown you no reason why you shouldn't take them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, give me my Cincinnati Houston final.
Cincinnati Houston final. And so this
just like we all predicted.
Yes, exactly. So now you turn into a pumpkin, true?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we'll see you when we see you.
All
right. That's Jarrett. So Jarrett gets to hang out, and then he gets to go and deal with the real world. Damn it. Yeah, David, I do. Because it's always, when David says I hand out golden tickets like they're gummy bears. For those of you that like gummy bears, the answer is yes, I do. But when, you can have when any of these folks want to sit there and crash a party, which is what this is every morning, it's always fun to crash a party and be able to discuss what's going on in and around the world of soccer. But it had been entirely too long. So it is great to have friends, David. You are correct. But it had been entirely too long since we'd had Glenn on the show. And with everything going on with Houston, I asked him about it on Sunday, but I didn't know how long his broadcast duties were on Sunday and how long it was to, how much talking he had to do. And I'm sure that the folks, had to do the car wash on Monday. So I'm like, okay, what if we got Glenn to come in on Tuesday? So we get Glenn to come in on Tuesday. We had Glenn, and we'll have Glenn next week at Tuesday at 10 a.m. as well. So what I'm going to do is write down so I don't forget. Glenn Davis, Tuesday, 10 a. All right. So Glenn is back next week, 10 a.m. to discuss what's going on. But yeah, I mean, when you can have golden ticket holders that range from skips for the USA curling, who happen to be part owners in the NPSL, and referees and all kinds of media folks and friends and folks who are friends. No, it's always fun. But no, it's great to have Glenn on this morning. Great to have Jarrett back this morning. Since we started to discuss it with the Best 11 officially out there, and our friends at MLS PR. So here we go. The 2023 MLS Best 11 presented by a tire company that doesn't sponsor our show. Berkey and net. Now this probably will carry the whole idea of what we get to argue about today, tomorrow, and forever. So here we go. Berkey in net. And remember, this is Best 11. So Berkey in net. And I know that we could probably sit there and go, okay. We'll talk about those that got, how do we phrase this? Incorrectly assessed. We'll talk about that in a bit. Defenders. Matt Miazga. Seriously? Matt Miazga, Best 11. Seriously. Okay. Tim Parker, Walker Zimmerman. Midfield. Lucho Acosta, Thiago Almada, Ache, Hani Mukhtar. Forwards, Denny Bouanga, Gigi, and Cucho. Matt Miazga, part of the Best 11 defenders of the year. Wow. Okay. Tim Parker, I would have voted for Tim Parker ahead of Miazga and all of that. You're looking at somebody like Yamar got shafted. I think that he should have been a part of this discussion ahead of Matt Miazga anyway. Lucho Acosta, he's the MVP. You can't go wrong. Thiago can't go wrong. Ache, I thought was an interesting choice, but it's good that I'm not going to sit here and say no. And Hani Mukhtar, obviously, with what you're seeing out of the midfield. And up top, Denny Bouanga, Gigi, and Cucho. I get that. All right. Philadelphia. All right, so Roman Berkey, goals allowed 45 in 34 games. What about Andre Blake? Blake actually gave up less goals. 41. Gillespie even gave up less goals. 39. So, okay. You got that. All right. So, I mean, and I can make cases for everybody else. But, Abby, if all of the golden ticket holders decided to come in all at the same time, I can have as many as 10 people discussing things at once. It'd be epic. But I think the biggest snub is probably Yamar. That's not a part of this list. Like I said, that's just me thinking off the top of my head. Extra Time had their list. They've got Berkey, DeJuan Jones, Miazga, Janssen, who I can make a case for, and Alvaro Barreal. There's a lot of Cincinnati here. There's too much Cincinnati. Wobodo as a D-mid? No. Almada, Herrera, Acosta. Okay, fine. And then Denny Bouanga and Cucho Hernandez. But no, I've got issues with their midfield. Absolute issues with their midfield. João Paulo, Carrasquilla, if you're looking at other midfielders. Moreira, Yamar, Kai Wagner, Hollingshead, this was their best 11B. João Paulo, Carrasquilla, Carlos Heel in the midfield, Ryan Gold, Brian White. Julian Gressel has no business being on any best 11. Tafari in Dallas, Jackson Reagan in Seattle, John Tolkien, system. Kubas, Lewin, Mukhtar in the midfield, Espinoza, Facu Torres, Gigi. Gigi being on the third team for extra time should tell you everything that you need to know. But no, for me, probably it would be looking at Yamar over Miazga. And I understand Tim Parker and Walker Zimmerman. I understand those two. I understand the rest of the list. But I would go, instead of Berkey, I would go Blake or Gillespie. I would go Blake or Gillespie for keeper. And I would go with Yamar instead of Miazga on defense. Maybe bringing in a Wagner or another Philadelphia player at the back. But yeah, for me, it's Yamar in, Miazga out, and either Blake or Gillespie in over Berkey. Because both teams actually gave up less goals than what we saw involving the picks that are on the board. So I said that's the snubs for me. I have given out more than 10 golden tickets. We can just do it as a rotation. We'll do it on the half hour. Yeah, third. But remember, Rick, birthday boy, this is extra time. I mean, they had Blake fourth team keeper. So, like I said, they had Gressel third team defense, and they had Blake fourth team keeper. That should tell you all you need to know. And if the 10 were on at the same time, you need to be on a big TV stream. All the faces would be way too small on the phone. Yeah, I mean, pretty much. And Ricky, pretty much anyone who won an MLS award should be on the first team. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that would make the most sense processing it through. It would. So that's your best 11. I disagree with a little bit of it. I understand most of it. So that's where we are. MLS Best 11 presented by a tire that doesn't sponsor this show, but does go from one end of the continent to the other. So that's your that's your notes on that. I know that we keep doubling back and trying to talk about what happened in Fulham and Wolves yesterday. Basically, what else I was going to play was Gary O'Neill mad, and I was going to play the discussion that the desk had with Kara Banks, Robbie Earl, and Danny Higginbotham. But yeah, so let's suffice to say, Gary O'Neill's mad. He's probably going to get either a phone call or an envelope or both. He's probably going to get a phone call from the PGMOL about how mad he was. Actually, tell you what, here's how mad Gary O'Neill was. I'll skip the NBC Sports discussion because that was, part of what we were thinking about as a part of building our case in this particular instance. But trust me, we got Bart coming on tomorrow at 10:30, and we'll break it all down. So here's how mad Gary O'Neill was after the match to discuss.
A game that will have a lot of talking points, particularly from your perspective. It's our understanding you've been and spoken to the referee. Are you able to share us what you've shared with him?
We discussed a lot of decisions. Viniscus should have been sent off for headbutting Max. Clear. Headbutts him on the nose. Isn't sent off, is given a yellow. Tim Ream should have been sent off for his second bookable offence on the penalty. So they're both my opinions on those. Obviously, people can have their own. We get to the penalties that went against us. Nelson plays the ball, doesn't touch Tom Kearney. I've watched it back with the referee, and to be fair to him, he says he thinks they've got that wrong and he should have been sent to the monitor. Doesn't help me. Doesn't help all the fans that have travelled all this way to watch the team. Doesn't help the players who are feeling frustrated again. So Nelson one has pretty much been admitted by the referee that they've made a mistake. The one on Harry Wilson we disagree on a little bit. He thinks there's enough contact there to give a penalty. I think it's really soft. I think you could argue that maybe two of them could go against us. For all four of those situations to go against us is a tough one for the lads, and supporters and myself to take because we've been here a lot of times this season. So, tough because we didn't deserve that.
So there's Gary O'Neill. He's mad, and he's probably going to end up with, at the very least, an envelope from the Premier League, if not a phone call from the PGMOL, or maybe an envelope from the PGMOL and a phone call from the Premier League. So Gary O'Neill's mad, understandably so, after what happened yesterday. And it's just another instance where 90+3, first and foremost, when a center ref is called to go to the monitor, you know that you're probably going to get a change. Second, we've got to have time limits on these kinds of things. We've got to have time limits on these kinds of things. The more you're at a monitor, the more you're looking for something, not looking at. To me, the third PK seemed obvious from jutting out of the leg and that kind of a thing. So it looked obvious to me that it was a penalty. But having to look for it and look for it and look for it and look for it, that to me, you're looking for something instead of looking at. So that was interesting, that third PK call in the second half that gave full points to Fulham and left Gary O'Neill pissed. So there you go. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo this morning, and we got to go over the TV schedule as well. So we'll go over what you can watch, and we got to go over the Champions League matchups and let you know what's going on there, because there's stupidity down here that we'll get into when we talk about Champions League. Manchester United could have made inquiries about Timo Werner could make a bid in January. Arsenal lining up a move for Douglas Luiz with Thomas Partey's future uncertain. Juve are considering signing Partey, which could help fund Arsenal's bid for Luiz. Daily Mirror. Manchester City and Liverpool are keen on Luiz. 90 minutes. Unai Emery says Villa do not intend to sell Luiz. Because once again, you can't sit there and say, yeah, I'm going to sell. Because then once again, you set yourself up for not getting the full worth of the player from your own point of view. So that's what you're staring at there. Chelsea plotting a one-in, one-out transfer policy, which could mean several players leaving to make way for new signings. That's from the Telegraph. Chelsea players who could leave: Thiago Silva, whose contract expires next summer, and Trevor Chalobah. That's from the Standard. Manchester United have made Crystal Palace Mark Gahey their top target in January to help out on defense. Manchester City and Arsenal are interested in AC Milan 15-year-old Italian forward Francesco Camarda from Tuttosport. Spurs and Arsenal keen on Feyenoord's Mexican striker Santiago Jimenez. Scouts from several Premier League clubs have been watching Getafe and watching Mason Greenwood. So we'll see what happens with that. Newcastle could make a loan move for PSG's French striker Hugo Ekitike in January. And since we are on Newcastle and PSG, your stupidity down here involves stupid people basically freaking others out in a bar. I mean, literally, it's like you're setting bars on fire now as an ultra. Because, yeah, you think that's cool. The video's out there, and I mean, it's disgusting and it's disconcerting, and it's, PSG fans. Let me see if I can figure out where it is. Yeah, PSG fans attacked a pub full of Newcastle fans last night. So the video is out there, and so it's out there. Literally, PSG fans are just destroying a bar in Newcastle. And, of course, the video's up. Like 20 seconds, but still. PSG fans decide to go to Newcastle, and the Ultras, they're masked Ultras, and they're tearing up a bar. So, nice job. Good work. Like I said, we'll get into the Champions League matches coming up in a bit. Manchester City and Arsenal have sent scouts to watch FC Copenhagen's 15-year-old midfielder Tristan Aldcroft-Panduro. That's from the four-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. Newcastle's Jacob Murphy is attracting interest from Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest. And there is a line of thinking. And Abby's heading out, and have a terrific Tuesday as well. And so Abby's heading to her petty. The boss has her beauty appointment later today as well. So you guys are on the same page. So Manchester City Arsenal chasing after a 15-year-old Danish midfielder. Newcastle is Crystal Palace. If Nottingham Forest gets rid of Steve Cooper, I think Crystal Palace is in line to snap him up pretty quickly. English winger Jacob Murphy attracting interest from both. Crystal Palace monitoring Cooper as a possible replacement for Roy Hodgson. Barcelona want to keep Uruguay defender Ronald Araujo despite interest from Bayern Munich. Gareth Southgate is expected to hold talks with Manchester United 18-year-old midfielder Kobe Mainoo to persuade him to play for England rather than Ghana. And that is from the Star newspaper. So that is your early round of gossip, rumor, and innuendo for the day. In Champions League, it is group stage. It is 8 today and 8 tomorrow. Tomorrow, hopefully, Dylan Butler will have recovered from all of his L-tryptophan, joining us at 10, and we'll have a lot for Bart to talk about at 10:30 with reffing down here and such. So today, 12:45, 2 matches, Celtic and Lazio. Lazio's a big favorite at home at a -167. I don't think Celtic has scored. We'll check those stats in a bit. And Shakhtar is at a -105 hosting Antwerp. They need points if they're going to qualify for Europa. 3 o'clock, 6 matches. AC Milan +117 at home against Dortmund. Draws a +254, Dortmund a +247. Barcelona is a -217 at home against Porto, who's north of +600. Feyenoord a +154 at home against Atletico Madrid, a +179. Manchester City, a big favorite at home against Leipzig at a -303. Leipzig is a +785 in the composite. PSG and Newcastle, after the fans have been tearing things up all night, PSG is a -147. Newcastle a +405. Draws a +313. Young Boys hosting Red Star, and Young Boys are a +114. And Red Star is a +222. Your standings in those groups, if I can find those groups, it's E, F, G, and H is what we are having today. A, B, C, and D are tomorrow. In Group E, still a firefight. Atletico Madrid is at 8 points after match day 4. Remember, 2 more matches to go in the group stage. Lazio's at 7 points. Feyenoord's at 6. Celtic has scored 3 goals in 4 matches, and they are at a goal difference of -9 and 1 point. Group F, Dortmund 7 points, PSG 6 points, Milan 5 points, Newcastle 4 points. So a lot is in play there. Group G, Manchester City and Leipzig are the 2 teams that will go. Just don't know the order yet. Manchester City wins today against Leipzig, then they win the group. Red Star and Young Boys are both at 1 point. Red Star's ahead on goal difference by 2 goals to get into Europa League. Group H, Barca, Porto, identical 3 wins and 1 loss. And they are at 9 points each. Shakhtar today gets Antwerp. Shakhtar is at 6 points right now. They are in the Europa League spot and could really make things difficult. Could sneak into the group stage with a win today, because if Barca and Porto were to draw, or if one team got an outright win, one team gets an outright win, they go to 12, the other team stays at 9. Shakhtar wins today, they go to 9 points at 3-0-2. So that could set up an interesting match day last in Group H. But E, F, G, and H today. Tomorrow it is Group A, B, C, and D when it comes to Champions League. So what to watch and where to watch it. Feyenoord Atletico Madrid is on CBS Sports Network. Very early this morning, Argentina played Germany in the U17 World Cup. Earlier this morning, not quite as early, France and Mali played at 7 a.m. Galavision is AC Milan Borussia Dortmund at 3. 2 to NA has Lazio Celtic, and then they have Barcelona and Porto as their doubleheader. Unimas is simulcasting Lazio and Celtic. Univision is simulcasting Barca and Porto. ESPN Plus is still doing their streaming offer. They've got Watford and Norwich in the championship at 3. Golazo Network has Lazio, Celtic, Young Boys, and Red Star. Paramount Plus has the Asian Champions League going on. They had 3 matches at 5 a.m., 1 at 7. They've got 4 more at 11 a.m. Once again, that's on Paramount Plus. And Paramount Plus has all of the Champions League action today and tomorrow. They've got Barraca Central and Argentinos Juniors at 5 in the Argentina Primera, and the Brasileiro at 7:30. They have Vasco da Gama and Corinthians. VIX has all of the Champions League matches. They have the third-place game in the CONCACAF Caribbean Cup between Harborview and Mocha at 6. And then Real Esteli and Alajuelense is your championship game. That's on VIX at 10 o'clock tonight. So that's your Tuesday viewing of everything going on and where to watch it. From our friends at the Telegraph, Tom Morgan, very, very busy man. Lord Cameron is under pressure to release the £2.33 billion funds from the Chelsea sale. Remember, Roman Abramovich promised the sale proceeds would go to all Ukraine war victims, but that hasn't happened yet. So now Lord Cameron is under pressure to tear up the agreement with Europe amid intensifying anger, these are Morgan's words, of world-changing funds from the sale of Chelsea still in limbo after 18 months. And that, to me, has been, a big question mark. Why are these funds still in limbo? Why have they not been sent directions they're supposed to? Roman Abramovich first promised proceeds for all Ukraine war victims after putting Chelsea up for sale March 2, 8 days before facing sanctions over alleged links to Vladimir Putin. Huge fund has remained untouched in a frozen account since the sale, in part because of bureaucratic quagmire between the government and Europe. Despite the sale of the club taking place entirely within UK jurisdiction, ministers signed a unilateral declaration in May with the European Commission stating the money would be spent exclusively within Ukraine. David Cameron's appointment as Foreign Secretary has led to renewed efforts to have the funds released, with calls coming from Save the Children and Mike Penrose, a former UNICEF UK chief exec who is set to finally launch the proposed independent foundation that would control the money. After months of frustration, Penrose says he hopes the heavyweight return of Cameron, the former prime minister, to front-bench politics could spark a long-awaited breakthrough. Penrose, quote, "The unilateral declaration can be withdrawn at any time. This is a former prime minister who had increased Britain's standing in terms of humanitarian work. His partnerships of the past put Britain as probably the leading humanitarian nation on the planet." And he says, "I'm looking forward to speaking with him when he's back and hopeful to do things." Backed by James Denislow, the head of the conflict team at Save the Children. Penrose has set up legal undertakings to make sure the money cannot fall back into the hands of Abramovich. The government will have board input, and Jan Egeland, who once advised Kofi Annan at the UN, has been brought in as interim chair. So big exclusive there from the Telegraph. Abramovich's approval would be required for the funds to be released in line with different terms. The government rejects any suggestion. It has been sitting on the money, with multiple sources telling Telegraph Sport they believe it was the agreement from the outset to only spend money inside Ukraine. One insider with knowledge of the talks said they thought it was unlikely Cameron would adopt a new government position, insisting this money was meant always for Ukraine. So maybe the Abramovich funds might be working their way out of what we're doing and trying to figure out where these funds can go, since they've just been sitting there. News for Jessica Charman. We've talked with her a great deal about Reading and their problems. So once again, headline, Reading enter advanced takeover talks to end Da Yong's ownership. Ginevra Associates are in the front seat to complete a takeover from the Chinese businessmen who took over the club 6 years ago. Reading are in advanced talks with Ginevra, an investment group based in Luxembourg, over the takeover. Hopeful of being granted exclusivity later this week to buy the club from Da Yong. Understood. The process over the proposed takeover has been made in recent days. The negotiations are ongoing. Talks are said to be moving towards a conclusion. Mike Ashley was also under consideration. Yes, that Mike Ashley. But Ginevra are now in the front seat to complete the deal. If talks continue to progress, a takeover could be completed by January. Ginevra would have to pass the owners and directors test. Derby's takeover by David Clowes last year was completed in 17 days. Reading have been docked 16 points under Dai Young in the last 3 years, currently at the bottom of the League One table. Young recently attended an EFL hearing over a misconduct charge, could be banned from the sport if found guilty by an independent commission. Reading fans have regularly protested against Young's ownership this year, home games being targeted with hundreds of tennis balls being thrown onto the pitch to delay matches and marches taking place beforehand. Greg Double, a spokesperson from protest group Sell Before We Die, said, quote, "This club is begging to be saved, and a new owner will likely be hailed as a savior, but this support is conditional. We have no issue with owners looking to profit from the club as long as the club profits too. If there's any good to come out of this situation, it's that Reading fans have been somewhat radicalized. Hopefully that serves as a warning to any prospective new buyer." So we could be coming to a conclusion. But until things are signed, things aren't signed. We'll see if we can reach out to Jess over on the other side of the Atlantic and get her thoughts on all of this. Celtic are targeting Portuguese winger Thiago Arujo as a January signing. Keep an eye on that. Garrett Southgate is owed money after his agent loses investments without his permission. Terry Byrne is alleged to have used money belonging to the likes of Southgate, Joe Cole, and Glenn Hoddle. Owed money by an agent amid allegations he invested their cash without permission as part of a failed £25 million property deal. Byrne used money belonging to Southgate, Cole, and Hoddle without telling him, according to the four-letter paper. Said to have spent months pursuing huge sums amid fears some of Byrne's businesses were facing liquidation following the purchase of giant new offices in central London last year. Byrne, who runs the agency 1010 Talent, was appointed by Southgate as his agent while he was still England U21 manager, has helped negotiate 3 contracts with the FA for his client worth almost £20 million. Working relationship allegedly under threat over late payments owed from sponsorship deals and commercial work. According to the four-letter paper, Byrne, who's previously managed Pele and David Beckham, has admitted investing money without their consent and is seeking to repay them. Saga was to have triggered when funding for the purchase of a 6-story building near Oxford Circus last year collapsed after 1010 had already borrowed £21 million, as well as taking out a $5 million VAT loan. Property was said to be in the hands of receivers. No suggestion of deliberate deceit in the alleged investment of Southgate and others' money by Byrne, who also has links to other players through one of his other companies, 1966 Entertainment. Current 1010 clients include Michael Carrick, Russell Martin, and Mark Noble. Keep an eye on your stuff. Once again, keep an eye on Steve Cooper. Mr. Marinakis, less than pleased, even though they're ahead of their win total from last year. Also from Tom Gary over at the Telegraph. Multi-million-pound investment in Luz called off because the men's team got left out. Club ends talks over a huge cash injection because it would have conflicted with the principle of funding both teams equally. Proposed purchase of women's championship side Luz FC is off because it conflicted with the club's principle of funding their men's and women's teams equally. Mercury 13, a group led by Greek-Argentine businesswoman Victoire Gojevina-Reynal, is aiming to invest $100 million into women's football clubs worldwide. Entered into a period of exclusivity in August, but the club's core philosophy has ultimately seen talks come to an end, and the two parties have now mutually agreed to end discussions. 2017, Luz FC became the first club in the world to divide their budgets for men's and women's football equally, currently owned by 2,573 fans. Men's team play in the 7th tier. In the Isthmian League, women's team play in Tier 2 last season finished as the 21st highest-ranked women's side in England. Owners got the chance to vote the final week of October to move forward with discussions on the investment. More than two-thirds, were in favor of the proposal. However, with the turnout for that vote being just 42%, basically 3 out of every 7 members, understood concerns that there was not a clear majority of support for the idea. Club told existing owners on Monday the parties have agreed the foundation principles diverge considerably from Mercury 13's operating priorities, which make partnership challenging at this time. Mercury 13 has named itself in tribute to the 13 women who in 1960 passed the astronaut test, subsequently not allowed to work for NASA. Morgan Stanley are said to be leading its investment operations and managing the group's funds. Emi Aluko is a part of that group. Mercury 13 members also include Luis Vicente and former PSG keeper Ariana Cricione. Board members include Galatasaray chief exec Ebru Koksal, first woman to be elected to the European Club Association's executive board. The group intends to take over 13 women's clubs, specifically in Europe and Latin America, will aim to buy one club in 13 different countries. So that's an interesting idea. We'll see if Mercury 13 will continue to chase after other clubs. And the reason that Steve Cooper is going to be kept an eye on by Crystal Palace, Roy Hodgson's facing increased pressure at Crystal Palace after poor results. So if Hodgson goes, if Cooper goes, do not be surprised if Cooper comes in to Selhurst Park. So keep an eye on the carousel, because the carousel ain't going nowhere. Carousel ain't going nowhere. And something else we'll bring up, the trials for sin bins. Ask Bart about that tomorrow. We'll see if Bart is for a sin bin when it comes to sending players away, not off but away. Sam Kerr has withdrawn from the Australia squad. Crystal Palace feared that Abdoulaye Doucouré could miss the rest of the season. Pep Guardiola is hinting at an extended stay with Manchester City. He says he has energy. Grealish and Kovacic are among doubts in the run-up to the Leipzig game. He could extend his tenure as Manchester City manager when his contract ends in the summer of 2025. But having brought in Doku, Vardiol, and Mateus Nunes, I have energy. I'm not going to answer if the process would entice him to stay longer. 1 year and a half is a lot of time in football. I arrived here with long hair, and look what happened. If remaining in situ beyond his current deal was a possibility, Guardiola said, yeah, of course, I can leave tomorrow too. I would have loved the team that won 100. I would have loved the team that won 100 points to stay eternally. At all the clubs, this happens. 7 full seasons, 5 Premier Leagues, 2 FA Cups, 4 Gummy Bear Cups, Champions League, and a Super Cup. Looking for Kevin De Bruyne to return after hamstring surgery close to the new year. Keep him away from Boxing Day. When Guardiola was asked, Pep says, if he, meaning De Bruyne, said January, it'll be January. If he said end of December or the new year, it'll be a happy new year for everyone. I'm not optimistic about Grealish, Kovacic, and Nunez coming for the Leipzig match, but we will see. Checking other news quickly. And keep an eye on this. See, once again, when you've got more than one reporter on a story, Ed Aarons and Romain Molina. Afghanistan football head involved in match fixing, according to former players. FA President Mohammed Kargar has been accused over games back in 2008. He denies the claims and says people with an agenda are targeting him. Fixing 2 matches alleged during a men's tournament in Malaysia. Former captain Jalaluddin Sharityar and keeper Aimal Girawal among those who have accused Kargar, who's been president of the AFF since January 2019, and had 2 previous spells as coaching the senior men's team of working in collaboration with notorious match fixer Wilson Raj Paramal and Dan Tan to arrange the results against Nepal and Sierra Leone at a tournament in 2008. Tan was described in 2013 by Interpol as head of the world's largest and most aggressive match-fixing syndicate, but denies wrongdoing. In October 2019, FIFA banned for life former Afghan player Mohammed Salim Israfil Kohistani and 6 others after an investigation lasting several years. It centered around matches that the convicted Singapore-based match fixer Paramal had attempted to manipulate for betting purposes. Several players who were part of the Afghan squad alleged that Kargar was also involved in a plot with Paramal and Tan in exchange for each player being paid $2,500 at the tournament in Malaysia. So that is your requested reading of the day. The world we know. It's been a fun show. Thanks for hanging out with us. Tomorrow, once again, it will be Dylan Butler, hopefully at 10 o'clock, having hopefully recovered from his L-tryptophan. Bart with an ton of stuff to talk about and roughing down here and anything going on national team-wise. So Bart will be on at 10:30. And we may as well just have Bart on the first hour with everything that's been going on roughing down here-wise. But it was great to catch up with Glenn Davis. And Glenn will be back next Tuesday at 10 o'clock, win or lose, to discuss what happens with Houston and what happens with Major League Soccer from here. Remember, we've got player decisions coming up this week from the teams that were knocked out. We went over some of them yesterday. So interesting to see what the decisions are with Seattle and with Orlando. Oscar Pereja, another decision that has to be made. He is now officially out of contract with the season over, probably the end of the calendar year. Then you also have Sporting decisions that have to be made and Philadelphia decisions that have to be made. So we'll keep an eye on those over the next couple of days. Best 11's out for Atlanta United. It is Gigi and Thiago Almada, and we'll probably argue about the best 11 again tomorrow. So get your thoughts in with that. And that might be opening kickoff tomorrow too. So we'll get back over that and see if anybody argues and wants to argue about best 11s. So that's another go-around of soccer down here, Soccer's Morning Show. And don't forget to follow Glenn Davis at Glenn Davis SOC, because soccer matters. We know this. And why do we know this? Because of when Glenn says things, we know that that Glenn speaks the truth.
Hey, Glenn Davis here in Houston, Texas, a big fan of soccer down here. And remember, soccer matters.
And he's right. So we'll be back at it again at 9:05 tomorrow morning. It's the end of the show. Mucha Platiel, play it safe, and that means I get to do this. We'll be back at it again 21 hours and 57 minutes from now. Bye.